going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music, and today I want to talk about this record right here. This is J-Jazz Deep Modern Jazz from Japan, 1969 to 1984. Simply put, I think this is one of the best compilations that BBE has put out. I would go as far as to say it's probably one of the few absolutely essential compilations that you grab from BBE Records, and part of that has to do with the fantastic packaging and the excellent track selection as well. And if you can still find a copy of this record, highly recommend that you grab it on vinyl, because there are some tracks exclusive to the LP, although they might be available digitally. I'm not entirely sure. I know the CD doesn't have some of the tracks on here that the record does. And yeah, I just kind of want to break down a little bit why I think you should be checking this compilation out if you don't know anything about it. So, with that little introduction out of the way, let's get into what could potentially be one of my favorite records of 2018. So as I've mentioned before in previous videos, I live in Japan. And I've always felt like one of my biggest missed opportunities was not getting into more Japanese music. I mean, I've sort of dipped my toes into the world of it. Like, I know my some city pop shit. I know basically look out for anything by Yamashita Tatsuro. And like, I know my YMO stuff, and I know a little bit about the Shibuya K stuff. But other than that, that's pretty much where my knowledge base ends. And for the longest time, I'd always been wanting to explore the world of Japanese jazz. So when I found out that BBE was putting this compilation out, I got really, really excited and highly recommended. I would probably put a link to it or the video itself in my WordPress and Steemit blog so you can check it out for yourself. There's actually a great interview with the person who compiled it, whose name is slipping me right now, and a photographer who did all the wonderful photography for this compilation that's featured on the cover, the gatefold, and the back of the LP, who went around to all these different jazz record cafes that are littered all over Japan. And from that sort of collaboration, that's how this record came about. As well as, from what I could guess, trying to make people more knowledgeable about the world of the unsung heroes of Japanese jazz. Because from what I can gather, a lot of the guys on this compilation are not household names. And the majority of people that I've met in Japan who like their jazz generally tend to prefer American jazz. And I've never really heard anybody talk in sort of my circle of DJ / record collector friends. I've never really heard anybody talk about Japanese jazz. So with all of that together, it was really hard to figure out find a good in for getting into Japanese jazz. So, long story short, when I saw that BBE was putting out this compilation, I got really excited, because I was like, this is my chance to really explore a world of music that I know nothing about. And it just so happens that this may be one of the most immaculately, there we go, immaculately put together compilations I've ever heard. Because there is not a single minute wasted on this compilation. From front to back, from beginning to end, every single song on here is absolutely brilliant. And in some cases, it actually rivals some of the American Western jazz artists for sheer creativity. And I think that's saying a lot. There's really no shortage of different types of jazz on here either. If you're into more spiritual jazz, a la sort of Sun Ra and other artists whose names I can't really think of right now. And if you're into more of like the soul jazz / post-bop, sort of modal jazz that Blue Note was pretty much responsible for, then you're going to find a lot to like on here too. I guess And usually I'd save this for the end of the video. I'd say my only little quibble is the fact that jazz funk seems sort of underrepresented on here. Or at least what my idea of good jazz funk would be. There just really isn't a track on here like that. And if you're kind of going into this hoping that you're going to find some mid-tempo drum solo / drum breaks on here, you will not find that. But if you go into this compilation just expecting to hear some, pardon my French, fucking amazing jazz, then you will not be disappointed if you grab this. And given that this is a jazz compilation, as you might expect, the musicianship on here is absolutely top-notch. Everybody plays at an expert level, and it just makes me completely envious at how well everybody sounds on here. Drums, saxophone, pianos, everything just sounds absolutely incredible on here. And I gotta say, as someone who's lived in Japan for a long time, I've heard a lot of criticisms about Japanese musicians in that they are technically very sound and good at what they do, but their playing generally tends to lack a lot of emotion and just doesn't feel as quote-unquote real as a lot of Western musicians. Now, there is probably some validity to that sort of prejudicial and racist statement, but that is definitely not the case for the musicianship on here. Everyone plays with a lot of passion, and while it may not be soaked in a lot of depression and heroin, there's definitely some really powerful musicianship on here. And in terms of the actual music on here, you're going to get a lot of different tempos, a lot of different moods, a lot of different feels. Some tracks are a little bit up-tempo, and there's actually a few tracks on here that I wouldn't mind throwing into a DJ set. Some of the tracks are a little bit more laid back, a little bit more cool, and I'd say overall, the tracks tend to ride the line perfectly between music that's easy to listen to and that just about everybody can get into, but also being just challenging enough to never feel like it's too safe or too boring. There's a whole variety of tracks on here, and as per my typical raw select record review style, I'm not going to go through and break down every single track on here, but you can check out this compilation for yourself down in the description. Head over to my WordPress or Steemit blog, because I'll have links posted to my favorite tracks from this compilation so you can hear it for yourself. But yeah, there are tons of different styles of jazz on here, tons of different moods, tempos. There's a little bit of everything on here, and it's not so easy listening that it's going to put you to sleep, but it's not so experimental that it's going to make you want to throw the compilation against the wall, like so many free jazz albums that I've listened to have made me want to do in the past. It definitely doesn't feel like, the one thing I'm actually really happy, and this is going to be a short little tangent, the few times that I have tried digging for Japanese jazz, it's just been non-stop going through the most flavorless Weather Report light style jazz fusion records, and that's the sort of stuff that makes me want to put my fingers down my throat and puke up whatever is in my stomach. I hate that shit. I'm going to go as far as to say I think jazz fusion may be one of the absolute worst genres of all time. Come at me. I actually just realized looking at this, by the way, this thing, it's called an obi. You see this on a lot of Japanese CDs and a lot of Japanese records. It actually does say fusion right here on the obi. Yeah, but it's still not that watery bullshit that I've heard a lot when I go record shopping and looking at Japanese jazz records. So apparently there is some fusion on here, but it's not the sort of fusion that I detest. So yeah, definitely doesn't do anything to damage my opinions on this compilation. Overall, I can't recommend this compilation enough. From what I've gathered by looking at some of the records that the liner notes talked about, that this is easily the most affordable way to hear some of these artists, because some of those records go for, on the low end, about $100 all the way up to about $500. So I don't want to bust the bank to be able to hear music that I want to hear. And BBE has lovingly put together a compilation that I think everybody who's a fan of jazz, anyone who has any interest in Japanese music, I cannot recommend this compilation enough. I guess the one thing I can't really do is give you a detailed music theory breakdown on how like how accomplished all these tracks are, and for me that would actually be kind of boring. But as far as should you grab this compilation, yes, absolutely, do not miss this. Steal it from a friend. I cannot recommend this compilation enough. And as I said at the top of this video, this could very well end up being my favorite record of 2018. So if you haven't grabbed this, BBE, J-Jazz, Deep Modern Jazz from Japan, 1969 to 1984. This is easily the most essential BBE record compilation that they've put out, and I highly recommend it to everyone. Which this will lead me to the outro to this video. If you've listened to this compilation, let me know what you think down in the description below. I'm actually kind of curious, for anyone who is sort of familiar with Japanese music, are there any artists that I should be looking out for? And do you think there is any validity to that little remark that I made in the middle of the video about Japanese musicians being generally sort of technically accomplished, but lacking in what we would generally call as soul, I guess. I didn't explicitly say it like that in the video, but that is a common complaint I've actually heard listening to live musicians in Japan. Anyways, enough rambling. As always, head into my WordPress and Steemit blogs so you can check out song links for this album for yourself. And that's going to be it for me today. I'm hoping to get a Raw Select Radio up pretty soon. And I think this next Raw Select Radio is going to be pretty interesting. I'm going to be focusing mostly on the records that I picked up from this last, that I showed off in the last recent record pickups video. So that should make for a really interesting Raw Select Radio, I think. And also, I have to say, putting together the video that I wanted to do from my trip down to Shibuya at the middle of last month is proving a lot more difficult than I thought it would be, because for whatever reason, I shot all my video on my iPhone, and whatever reason, my iPhone does not want to work with my computer anymore. So it's becoming a major pain in the ass to get the video off of my phone so I can actually start editing it and putting it together into something resembling a video. So that might happen, that might not happen, we'll still see. And yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Thanks again for watching. I'll probably do another Raw Select record review next week. So until then, thank you very much, and keep listening to good music, guys. Peace out!